Hi, everybody. I'm Mark with Marathon Press. I have got a great guest for you today. Jay Davis is with me. We're going to talk drone photography, something I've been interested in for a number of years and have wanted to know more about. I have a lot of questions that I'm going to file at him. And one thing I have always been impressed with Jay, every time I see him anywhere, we've always got a good conversation going. And we've got a lot in common. We've been in the industry a long time. He's been in it for 40 years. He's an architectural and product photographer now. He used to do portrait and wedding as well. He now serves on the Professional Photographers of Nebraska board, and he's an Air Force veteran. So, Jay, you have been around and been to Turkey and other places. So, welcome to the podcast, another place that you're now new to.
Well, thank you. And actually, Mark, I was honored and totally humbled when you asked me the other day because I'm just an average guy that does different things. And to be on your podcast, I felt was a very honorable experience I'm looking forward to.
Well, great. Well, I have been a big admirer of your work, and when I had you send me some of your images, it just made me realize, holy cow, there's so much talent in people that you knew they had, but you just, until you see it again in a variety of images, your work is outstanding.
Thank
And
you.
so, yeah, I'm excited for everybody to take a look at some of the images that I'll work into the editing of this as well. But I guess let's start at the beginning, Jay. Um, what is drone photography? And it kind of explain to people that maybe are brand new to this, just they don't know what drone photography is. What is it?
Well, drone photography is basically it's an unmanned aircraft. It has restrictions, but it can be used for a number of different things. Because of my background and my dealings with architects and contractors, I use it as a tool for them to help during construction process. I can get a 400-foot view of anything any day of the week for them. I also use it in my business as a tool to do roof inspections. So drone photography, in essence, is nothing like I said. It's an unmanned aircraft with a camera attached, and it has just a multitude of uses across the board.
So, with that in mind, what is the opportunity with this? I mean, you mentioned a little bit with rooftop, inspections, and I imagine farm fields and that kind of thing. Is that kind of what you're finding?
Yeah, so there is, I want to say it's kind of a wide open field, but like anything else, you almost have to have some niches in it when you're doing it. Like I said, I chose to do the inspection side of it. I've been asked by people to do what they call grading overlays. I have the software to do that, where you fly a set pattern over a construction site when they're doing the grading, and then we can determine through technology, through the computer, what we do with that. But one of the areas that I, obviously living in Omaha, I'm not exactly in a farming community, but one of the newest issues that's coming up is the use of crop infrared photography on crops to tell whether you got heat damage, whether you're getting enough water, and so on. And I'm not in an area where I can really uh, participate in that. I wish I was, but it's one area that's pretty wide open right now, and it's very beneficial to farmers. It saves them a lot of time, a lot of money, and the agronomists love it because it's just a secondary tool for them to use in helping a farmer get the best production they can off their land.
When you say infrared, is it a special camera then, or
Well, it's a digital infrared, which you can get your current cameras converted to infrared. They actually created it's basically, I think they call it a FLIR camera, which detects heat, cold, and gives them patterns. You can use that. Some of the guys here in town do that for energy um, audits on houses. They'll fly rooftops and they can tell the cold and hot spots from that same type of camera. So it's an interesting concept. I don't have that camera, and again, probably not going to buy it right now, but it's out there.
it's an opportunity? Never knew
Yep.
that existed.
Yep.
And speaking of equipment, so when you are looking at drones,
Mm-hmm.
what's I know there's like anything good, better, best, super. What do you recommend for people to maybe start with that are interested in this?
Well, first thing you have to kind of decide what you want to do. So if you're doing just real estate, which there's a huge market in that, I don't even touch the real estate as far as residential real estate. I do some commercial real estate, but very rarely. But there's different size drones. So in my particular case, I'm kind of middle of the road. I use a hexacopter. It's a more stable platform. I can fly in higher wind conditions, and it can also, if it drops a prop, it still come down on 5 of them instead of 6 of them.
Hmm.
Your 4 props, if you lose a prop, you're going to claim it on insurance. So, and it does happen, by the way. But so I went kind of a middle of the road. If you're starting out, I would suggest, not that I'm uh, sponsored by anybody or talking about anybody's product in particular, but your DJI Mavic series are really great starter drones. Their cameras are, in fact, one of them has a Hasselblad camera on the bottom of it, believe it or not.
Wow.
Maybe, yeah, and I've seen some images off the new one making me scratch my head thinking I might want to go buy one of those. But you know how equipment is. The boss says no, so you just wait till the opportunity comes. But yeah, so start out with a mid range. Don't I started out bigger just because I thought it would be better. The learning curve on that was painful, and only because you're flying a helicopter that has, or not a helicopter, a drone that has multiple direction and also has the ability to work with or without positioning. In other words, the GPS, you can work with it to create maps, or you can just fly it like a fly-by-wire aircraft, which is how I generally fly everything anyway. Your Mavics any of your DJI products, the Phantoms, they're unique in the fact that they have certain things built into them that you can't exceed the FAA minimums, which is interesting. And that's another topic we can talk about when we talk about licensing. But the drones that I currently fly do not have that limitation on them. Uh, I have to know my own limitations. Basically, I have to know where I'm at, where my altitude is, and so on, so I don't get in trouble.
So, how do you know? Is there like a regulation? A little bit of research I've done, it seems like if they're a smaller drone, you don't have to have a license, but if it's a certain size bigger, you do. Is that kind of how that works?
That's correct. If it's less than 5 grams, I believe it's been a long time since I took my test. If it's less than 5 grams, it's considered a consumer drone. It's not required to have a license, and it's not required to be registered. If it's over that, your drone has to be registered, and then depending on what you're using it for, determines whether or not you need a license. It's through the FAA. It's called Part 107, small unmanned aircraft. It's a certificate, but it's actually a license. I have a card that I carry from the FAA that says I'm certified to fly the drone. But what you do anytime you use a drone for commercial purposes, and this is what trips people up. So say that you're a photographer and you decide to take a drone to the wedding you're photographing. You're doing it for fun, but then all of a sudden they see images and they want to buy them. Once you do that, if you don't have your Part 107, you're now afoul of the FAA. And being afoul of the FAA is not a whole lot of fun. They tend to make life pretty miserable, and they have a very um, their fee schedule or their fine schedule is a little odd in the fact that you can't protest it. So
Wow.
if you get that letter from the FAA that says, "Hey, by the way, and this is what your fine is going to be," you have no avenue to protest that. So if it's $5,000, you're going to pay $5,000. That's just what it comes down to. So if you're using it, if you have a hobby drone and you decide to suddenly use it as part of your business, you have to be certain that you get licensed with the FAA.
Is that a difficult process, or how does that work?
Well, it's I like to equate it to taking your private pilot's license, sort of. You're taking the ground school part of that, a condensed version of that. It's not hard, but you have to learn terminology. You have to learn how to read weather maps. And then you have to know how to read what they call notice to airmen, which are posted out by the FAA every 12 hours and sometimes sooner, depending on what's going on. And then weather alerts. So when you go to do a drone job, let's say I'm flying in downtown Omaha, I have two problems. Number one, I'm in Epley Airfield's range. And so I have to notify the tower that I'm flying in that area, get permission to fly. And then I have to file a flight plan with them. Now, you can deviate your flight plan a little bit, but you need to let them know immediately that you did that. So it's that test shows you how to do that, tells you how to do that, how to read all those things you need to know so that you don't get yourself in trouble. And of course, the FAA now has come down with new rules just last year with regards to how your aircraft is identified. In other words, they're putting squawk boxes on them similar to what's on an aircraft. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is simply people didn't follow the rules. And for example, I live near Offutt Air Force Base, and if I decide I want to fly over that fence that says federal property, I'll never get my drone back. They got it, and they'll take it, and it won't come back. And then you get that letter from the FAA. It says, "Hi, we just now revoked your pilot's license."
Oh boy.
So we won't be doing that.
So know the rules,
Know the
do the
rules.
tests, follow the
Yes.
regulations, be
Yes.
legal. Everything
And
that guys don't like to do. We're in trouble.
exactly. And nobody likes to do that. That's correct. But I can tell you that the other big thing is insurance. And your homeowner's insurance will not cover you if you crash your drone. Okay. Period. It won't. If they get one little whiff of it you're using for commercial purposes, done.
Wow.
So I actually carry specialty aviation insurance on my drones, which I have two of them that are the same thing. Redundancy, you know how that goes. So it cost me about, I think it's $425 a year for liability and then drone coverage on those. But I've never had to use it, knock on wood. But one of the things that can happen that's very scary with a drone is they can lose connection to your controller. It can be a number of things. And I was some of the images I sent you, I think I was showing some roof or some canopy tops of the gas station. I was doing one for that corporation out by the interstate, and my drone lost contact. And you talk about wanting to pucker up in a hurry. I was at 400 feet. I had people around me, which is a whole different issue you have to understand when you're flying through the rules and regulations. And I have an interstate. I have no idea where my aircraft is going to go, none whatsoever. I have no contact with it. Um, Fortunately, when I hit my automatic home button, which every controller has, it did decide to return itself, but I had no visual from the camera. Everything, you have to fly visually anyway, but I had no visual with the camera. I don't know why. I had to come home and reprocess it, reprogram it. But I tell you what, I that was a sick feeling because there was a lot of people around. I've got about a pound, 2.5 pound drone in the air, and if it decides to come down, I had no idea where it was going to go.
Oh, that would be scary. And that's why you need insurance too, correct?
That's why you need insurance.
Oh,
Yes.
boy.
And that's a reportable incident. I actually had to report that to the FAA that I didn't lose control, but the aircraft lost communications with the controller. And so that it's not a mark on your record, but they put it in there that you self-reported an incident. And which, by the way, if you do that, that kind of keeps you on their good side. If
Hmm.
they find out about it later, not a good thing. So
And when you have and you're doing the test to get certified and you're getting the experience, what comes first, Jay? Do you kind of like fly the helicopter around to get experience and then take your test, or do you have to do the test first and then start to test your helicopter or drone, I should say? But how does that all work?
well, so currently they're not doing any flight testing as far as the test itself. You don't have to demonstrate your flying abilities. Um, so I would learn to fly a drone first. In fact, the first drone I flew was basically one of those $29 ones my wife got me for Christmas because I was whining. I thought I wanted to learn how to fly a drone. And I crashed it in the basement about 100 times. It's like, can't be that hard, right? It is. It's a little tougher than you think, but at the same time, start there, and then if you think that's what you want to do, then work your way up to taking the test, and then registering your drone when you get the one that you're going to fly in your business, and go from there.
Okay, and Jay, tell me too, with as you're doing photography, is there like a best time of day, an angle? Obviously you have to be cognizant of the weather and wind and everything else. Tell me a little bit when you get a job to photograph something for a drone photography. What do you consider for all of that?
The largest concern is probably the weather, and all of my clients are aware that it may be up until the last minute before we make a decision to go or no go. If I do take a second person with me as a spotter, which I have done that before, uh, at least I can fly a little different in the weather parameters than I can if I'm just flying on my own. But you have to consider that. Now, depending on what you're doing, if you're doing inspection work or you're doing site overview, I hate to say this, but the best time of day to fly it, noon,
Hmm.
because your sun's directly over you, your shadows are going to be minimized. But if you want to go for an artistic look, noon is the absolute worst time of day to fly it. I like to fly either very early morning for deep shadows and contrast, or late in the afternoon, same thing with a little bit of warmth to it.
And then when you're at in the air, is it all dependent on the angle and the job that they need you to do that you choose how you're going to photograph it? That how do you do that?
Yeah, so if it depends on the specific purpose. So there's a very large building I sent you with kind of a water pond in the corner. I was hired to do that job actually on the fact that I did fly drone work. That was in O'Neill. Actually, that building's up in O'Neill. So a couple things had to happen there. That's right on the edge of an airport, O'Neill's Airport. It's 1 million square feet. And so to get 1 million square feet in and still make it look normal, I had to fly just about at the very edge of the airport runway
Hmm.
to get that photographed. And I was at about 300 feet, only because the perspective started to get so out of whack on me, and that building being so big down lower, that it just didn't work. So that decision had to be actually made while I was flying. I was looking at it through my recording device, and it just you just had to make it when you were there. Most of the time, I'm pretty well planned on what I want to do when I get there. I know the building, I know the site, I know if I'm doing it in conjunction, like the residence I sent you, I'd actually been there all day. So I had a real good idea of where I wanted to photograph that from. And then I thought, you know what, I want to see if I can bring the interior out of that image, and which obviously I did. And the sky went right on me, and I probably tuned the sky a little more than I should have, but it turned out to be a great image,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the architect loved it, so loved
Do
it.
you have the client there with you as you're doing any of this?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It's kind of funny. Uh, about 90% of my work in architectural photography, I've gained so much confidence with the people that I'm working for that they don't even send their art director anymore. In fact, 90% of the time, they don't even call me to the office to look at plans. They'll send me the floor plan, and they'll have circles on it and say, these are the five we want. Do what you want from there. And it's a great working relationship that I have. And the same applies to drone photography. The particular client I did the house for, they love my, as they call it, my artistic interpretation of their work, whether it's stills or the drone stuff. And they kind of give me free reign.
Hmm.
So not having somebody there is nice. If you have somebody there, you have to explain some rules to them. And I don't know, you've worked with art directors, so you know where this is coming from. Art directors have a real funny way of thinking they know everything. But if you're chatting in my ear and I've got an aircraft in the air, eventually I'm going to tell you where to go and where to sit and where to stay until I'm done, because I have to be very cognizant of where that aircraft is, what I'm doing, what my elevations are, what my altitude is, everything. I can't have somebody jabbering in my ear about they think they want this or they think they want that.
When you're controlling, because I've never flown a drone, is there on your is there like a video screen that you're looking at and it's giving you readouts of all this, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, so my controller actually has a large video screen in the middle of it that it has both my camera, but it has all my data for wind speed and everything I need to fly is on there as well, including camera control. But when I'm in the field, I also tether to a laptop. So say that I take my wife, who's kind of my assistant from time to time. If I take her along, she can tell me what she's seeing on there from the image versus what I'm looking at on the smaller screen with all my flight controls on it. So it does help. And if I have an art director, I'll do that too. And that's where I'll tell you where to go and sit because I'm going to move the computer clear over here and you can't say anything to me. But yeah, so I do like to shoot tethered like I do everything else. I shoot tethered just simply to make life a little easier because you're seeing it on a bigger screen. But with the flight controls in there, yeah, it's all in the way. But I'm constantly going back and forth between the video image and then my controls at the side, just like you would if you're flying a plane or driving a car.
And how long do you typically have to do your flight? Is it, dependent on the batteries, or is it dependent on just how fast you can, get your angle and get the shots and get down, or how much time is usually involved with the job?
It depends. So flight time per battery on mine is about 30 minutes each. So I can get an hour of flight time in. You have to land, obviously, and change, hot swap the battery and go back out again. Each drone is a little bit different. It depends on what the battery capability is of that drone. But I like to pre-plan and visualize before I go up um, because you never know what can happen. You can suddenly have a wind come out of nowhere, as we all know happens in Nebraska. And while you're setting up that perfect shot, all of a sudden the wind's carrying your drone somewhere else, and you got to fly it and fight it, which pretty much cuts your battery time down. So I try to get up. I try to get about 15 minutes on each image in the air, and then recharge the batteries and go back up if I have to get more. Inspection work, it's kind of 30 minutes up, 30 minutes down, 30 minutes up, 30 minutes down.
And you probably have a plan. You've scouted out the location, the facility,
Yeah.
whatever, so that you kind of know before you even go in the air, kind of where and what you're doing.
Again, I have to create a flight plan. So when I create that flight plan, I have to kind of pre-visualize, pre-think through that anyway, so that I know, you know, for example, in Omaha, you can be flying a couple of different areas that are in airport control, plus hospitals that have helicopters. So I have to literally plan and file that flight plan. And when I do that, that's how I lay out the building and look at, okay, I want to be here and do this. Then I want to move here and do this. And then I want to jump over here and do that. So my flight plan, I indicate that. And I try to stick to that as closely as I can. Occasionally you have to deviate because of one thing or another, but that also helps me visualize the image before I get there.
Hey, if people want to get a hold of you, Jay, how can they reach you?
They can get me on my email, which is all lowercase jgdavisphotography@hotmail.com. They can go on my website, which is www.jgdavisphotography.com. Or you can call me, 402-850-6985.
Well, thanks so much, Jay. I look forward to doing more of this with you in the future because I know there's a lot more to share, and you're such a sharing, caring person. It's great to have your expertise.
Well, thanks.
I'm Mark Weber with Marathon Press. You can reach me here at markw@marathonpress.net or 1-800-228-0629, extension 283. See you next time.